You are listening to Mind Over Me, the mental wellness podcast with me, Scott Carter. I am a licensed therapist and someone who is very mindful and aware of the decline in our collective. I created this podcast so that we could have more direct and honest about difficult topics, and it's my goal to have honest but direct conversations that we need to have. It's also my goal to give my listeners the information that they need in order to find their own mental health. And this is where you will find the information that you need to be your. And of course, all of this is based on years of clinical experience. Thank you for being here. And we are back. For any regular listeners out there, I missed last week. Maybe you noticed, maybe you didn't. It was a calculated decision. I had a lot of other stuff on my plate, a lot of other stuff going. And I was like, yeah, something's got to go. So I missed last week, but here we are. Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thank you for listening. Let's make 2026 a better year, huh? Can we please? Not a great year for me, 2025. Not a great year. I am extremely determined to make 2026 a better year. I think I mentioned this in the previous episode, but it bears repeating. I reflected on my 2025 and I was like, ugh. That was not one of my better years. Not I've had worse years. I've definitely had worse years. But I've had better ones as well. So here's to 2026. Here's to new goals, new discipline, and some new optimism. And to be perfectly honest, so far, 2026 is already turning into a better year for me. Already, what is today? Today's the 10th that I'm recording this. And already in just the first 10 days of this new year, I feel like I'm coming right out of the gates. I've been very productive, working hard, getting shit done. It feels good. Started a new diet, very strict diet, very, pretty strict diet. I've done it before. It's been a long time, but I'm doing a ketogenic diet, which severely restricts. It's a low carb diet. So I'm very, very limited in what I could eat. But I'm confident that it's going to really, really help me get some of the results that I'm looking for. I'm not just looking to lose weight, but just kind of improve some health issues overall. For many years, food has been my primary vice. I'm such a foodie. I love foodie. I'm a food snob. I love all kinds of foods. I love foreign foods and ethnic foods. I love Indian. I love Thai. Who doesn't love Mexican food? Come on. And as I've talked about way too many times, probably by now, but again, bears repeating, my new thing is discipline, learning to be disciplined. And so far, I feel like I'm doing better. I'm becoming more disciplined. And let me tell you, it feels really good. It feels really super good because if you're not disciplined, you're drifting. When you're drifting in life, you don't usually get anywhere good. I suppose that some people might, but I'm definitely not one of them. So this episode, the topic of this episode, I'm sure you saw the title. I promised this episode before the new year, and I'm going to talk about getting the junk out of your head. Cleaning up your thinking, cleaning up your thoughts, cleaning up your mind. This topic is partially motivated by one of the episodes that I did about improving your relationship with yourself, which, as a side note, if you're new here, very, very important. You need to have a good relationship with yourself. If you have a bad relationship with yourself, your mental health is going to be in the tank. There is no alternative. You either have a good relationship with yourself and have good mental health, or vice versa. There's no having a bad relationship with yourself and having bad mental health, or vice versa. This episode is also this topic anyways, is partially motivated from my recent anxiety course that at the time of recording, not yet published, but I am insanely close. All the videos are done. All the videos are uploaded to my website. The course itself is done. But I need to put the finishing touches on the actual web page on my website before I can publish the web page that has the course on it. And I have to say, it feels really, really freaking good. I had started an anxiety course before, didn't finish it. It kind of went off the rails. I realized most of the way through it, like, this is not turning out to be the course that I wanted it to be. I abandoned that project like many others in my life. But I decided to redo it because I've not only helped my own anxiety, but I've helped the anxiety for so many other people as well. So if you're new here and you have anxiety, my anxiety course will be live very soon, probably possibly by the time this episode publishes, if not the week after. Frankly, I don't see any reason why I couldn't get it published this weekend by Sunday night. I don't see any reason why that couldn't happen for me. It's a very long course, more than 150 slides, 8-9 different sections, covering various therapy techniques, various modalities, my own therapeutic approaches that I've developed, my own skills that I've developed. These techniques, they work. They help your anxiety. I cured my anxiety. My anxiety's gone. And I pass a lot of this on to my clients. And so this anxiety course is packed with principles and techniques and exercises and homework. I would anticipate by the time I publish my next podcast episode that I will announce that course is live. So stay tuned for that. But on a personal level, seriously, it feels so good to complete a project, to finish something. It feels so good. And I'm speaking as someone who has traditionally really struggled with finishing things and completing things. I think I'm going to dive right into the topic. There's a lot of ground to cover, a lot of important stuff to cover. My goal on this podcast and as an experienced clinician is to truly give people what they need in order to just feel better. Like, we are drowning in an anxious world, my friends. In case you didn't notice, anxiety is through the roof. It's so much worse than it used to be. But this episode, again, it's intended to help you have a better relationship with yourself. And in order to do so, in part, you need to get the crap out of your head. There's a lot of shit in your head. There's just a lot of garbage in there. And I know this because my head used to be full of a lot of garbage. A ton of garbage. For example, some of the garbage that is usually in people's heads. Negative self-talk, right? We are always our biggest critic and our own worst enemy, and we are harder on ourselves than most people are, unless you have one of those crazy, overly critical, smothering mothers. Sorry, ladies, I like to pick on you a little bit. Sometimes it gets a little bit frustrating to hear the mainstream narratives talk like the only bad people in the world are men. Moms, women, they do a lot of horrible things too. I'm just trying to bust the myth. That's all. Moving on. Negative self-talk. Okay. Sometimes, especially too, if you had like an overly critical parent, you're going to experience a lot of negative self-talk, right? It can come in the form of verbal abuse. If you've experienced verbal abuse from your parents, you're usually going to pick up where they left off, right? That little voice in your head is going to pick up where they left off and be horrible and cruel and mean and awful to you. And I recognized this when I was younger, that I had a lot of negative self-talk. I call it self-abuse, really, when you're verbally, emotionally abusing yourself. And then when you're doing that to the nth degree, you're going to be an overly maybe sensitive person sometimes. And, I don't necessarily even believe in people just being sensitive, at least not for any good reason. But if you're emotionally beating yourself up all of the time, you're going to be super, super sensitive to any type of criticism, right? When I cleaned up my negative self-talk, that was a game changer for me. I did this when I was younger. I recognized that I had all of this nastiness directed towards me, and I worked on it, and I stopped it. I got rid of it. It drastically improved the relationship that I had with myself. Part of that is just realizing that, holy shit, I have a choice. I have a choice in this. I don't have to do this. I don't have to participate in this. I don't have to entertain these negative, horrible thoughts in my head, all this verbal abuse that's in my head. And again, it's just still so freaking weird to me, even as a mental health professional, that our minds turn on us as badly as they do. It's so weird to me. I talk about this all the time. It it's just bizarre that our own minds turn on us as bad as they do. Okay, moving on with my notes here. Okay, along the same lines of negative self-talk. Okay, we have to talk about criticism and the inner critic. Kind of similar, very similar actually, but deserving of its own bullet point at the same time. There's an incessant need often to point out every flaw, every mistake, and every imperfection. And supposedly, sometimes, motivated by the desire to be better. And at that point, you have to ask yourself honestly, is it working? Okay, so using my effectiveness check, that's what I call it, my effectiveness check. Okay, my effectiveness check goes something like this. Question number 1. Okay, we're going to use some critical thinking here. We're going to use some cognitive thinking. Okay. Question number 1: what is your desired goal or outcome? And so the answer might be, oh, my desired goal or outcome is to improve myself and have a better relationship with myself. Question number 2: what is your method for accomplishing that? Well, if you're on autopilot, if you're on automatic thinking, I'm going to get to that later. The answer might simply be, well, I don't know, I've never really thought about it. Okay. But regardless of whether or not you've thought about it, you do have a method, and maybe that method is to be overly critical of yourself. That's been your method up until this point. Okay, so question number 1, what is your desired outcome? To feel better about myself. Question number 2, what's been your method to criticize myself? Question number 3, is it working? And most of the time, being our own critic, the inner criticism, and feeding into that inner critic is not helping or working. Okay, number 3 on this list of junk in our head. Anxiety, of course. Anxiety is some of the junkiest of the junk. Anxiety is a big topic, which is why I built a huge, long-ass course on it. That will be available on my website. Yeah, if your mind is riddled with anxiety, it's garbage, man. Anxiety is garbage. Anxiety might have you convinced that it is useful, that it's helping you. It's not. Spoiler alert, it is not. That is the number one myth that I hear about anxiety, that it's helping people, specifically helping them be prepared. And believe me, folks, I have heard that one, holy shit, more times than I can count. Anxiety is not, in fact, helping you be prepared for anything. In fact, it causes paralysis and the lack of actual preparedness. This type of myth is just part of the mental illness, I believe. Okay. Ooh, number 4, very, very similar, but again, deserves its own bullet point. Overthinking and rumination. There's kind of a difference there. Let's talk about them both. Okay. Overthinking is not necessarily rumination, but rumination is usually overthinking. Anyways, overthinking is just when your mind is just like going a million miles an hour 24/7. Okay. Overthinking is horrible for your mental health. It's awful for your mental health. Now, over the years, I've had a lot of people say, well, I can't help it. And that's not true. You can help it. You absolutely can help it. And when I dispute people on that, when they say, oh, I can't stop overthinking. And I go, yes, you can. Well, what do they usually say? They usually go, okay, well, it's hard. There it is. So you want to avoid making effort. Okay. That is one of the killers these days I find with folks and their mental health, is that they don't want to put effort into anything. They've bought into this bullshit idea that mental health just magically falls into your lap, or that you can take a pill and voila, you can be horribly depressed, anxious, have low self-esteem. You take a pill and now you're sailboating. All bullshit. It's all BS. Okay. So overthinking, right? Your mind is just going a million miles an hour, 24/7. Rumination is a little bit different. It's basically cycling the same thing in your head over and over and over and over again, recycling the same thoughts, the same patterns over and over and over again. This is actually a form of mental illness. Back in the old days, they called it madness. Are you mad, right? Have you gone mad? Basically, you've lost your touch on reality because you're cycling the same thing over and over and over again. Okay, so rumination is also junk in your head. Okay, so there you go. Overthinking and rumination. Number 5, distorted perceptions and cognitive dissonance. Okay, this causes people a lot of issues. Like, I even feel like this one could use its own episode, but I don't think anybody would listen to it. Like, what do you like? If I label a podcast episode as, well, let's talk about your distorted perceptions and your cognitive dissonance, nobody would listen to it. There would be a big fat 0 on the number of downloads when I check the number. When I check it. But seriously, this one thing causes significant distress in people's lives. What are we talking about here? Let's break it down. Okay, very simple. It's very, very simple. Okay, think of it this way. Okay, let me describe it. There's reality, right? There's like what's actually happening. It's reality. And then there's a version of reality that has been constructed, created, engineered, and curated in our heads. Now, there is, right? So that would be a distorted version of reality, okay? Distorted perceptions, okay? We're all guilty of this to some degree, that we think, we might assume, there's junk in your head, right? Assumptions is garbage. Okay, don't ever assume, right? When you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. But when your perceptions are distorted and you have a cognitive dissonance, and the dissonance is what's between reality versus the version in your head. That's called a cognitive dissonance. What I've noticed with people is that the greater the dissonance they have in their head, the greater their distortions are, and the more like truly objective they think they are, meaning that they think that they see reality perfectly clear without bias or without any distortions. People with less cognitive dissonance, I find, are generally those who are very, very aware that they don't actually know anything, that they're very, very, very aware that everybody tells a one-sided story, that everything is biased, that there's a human factor in literally everything. And so they rigorously seek their own truth about like even the tiniest details. I like to think that I'm describing myself, folks. I am just as susceptible and have been susceptible to deception and lies and personal distortions and cognitive dissonances myself. I've experienced that to a large degree in my life. But what I notice is that when people have a huge cognitive dissonance, again, they are disconnected from reality. There's a version of reality in their head, and it's hugely, largely detached from what's actually happening. Those folks experience a lot of dysfunction, a lot of distress. They have a lot of drama. They just have a lot of problems, man. When you have a huge cognitive dissonance, you're just gonna have a lot of problems. You're gonna have a rough go. And then you're going to sit around and you're going to be like, shit, what is this? Like, why does this keep happening to me? What is going on? You're going to sit around and have that sentiment like, why does shit always find me? That's how it feels. Okay. And maybe that's relatable. Maybe you can kind of relate to that. So I'm going to help you narrow down the source of your issues. Okay. If you're listening to this on your phone or whatever, okay, get up and walk in the mirror, walk to a mirror and look in it. Okay. That's, we're going to find the asshole who's screwing up your life. Seriously though, that's not a dig. It's, self-deprecation is supposed to be, a reason to laugh a little bit and reflect on ourselves. There's no harm intended in that, but seriously, in most cases, there is one asshole that is ruining your life. So there's a lot of power in accepting that, my own version of reality might not be that accurate. Okay, and I would do better. This is you talking to yourself, me. I would do better if I were to accept reality as it is, rather than um, rather than trying to make reality fit within my paradigm system. As a side note, too, unfortunately, these days there are more than enough therapists out there who are perfectly willing to just validate everything in your head and everything you say. And you know what? This might deserve its own discussion. Let me save this. I'm going to talk about how therapists can help you with this and how a lot of them are not. I'm going to save that little discussion for a little bit later. And because it really deserves its own time, because there's a lot of new therapy norms that I just don't agree with, that I actually think are harming people. Therapist is not going to do you any good just by agreeing with you, okay? Number 6, along the same lines as well, kind of similar, self-deception. Okay, and let me say this. I'm going to say this very directly, okay? All of us, and I mean every single one of us, is guilty of bullshitting ourselves. We bullshit ourselves about all kinds of things. We might be in denial about the issues that we have, the issues that we need to face. And I'll tell you too, in this modern era, there are a lot of things, there are a lot of problems, there are a lot of issues, mental illnesses or whatever, that are being called normal and good and healthy and positive now. And that's really what, like, our young people especially, they're up against this. Like, really bad things, harmful things are putting right in front of them, and they're being told, "Oh, this is a good thing. This is good for you. This is positive. Do this." I'm especially going to pick on the fat acceptance movement. Yeah, of course, if you're overweight, I'm raising my hand right now. You deserve to be loved too. It's okay. I'm fine. It's okay. But yes, I deserve to be loved too. And yes, losing weight can be very hard. I've done it before. And I'm glad to be doing it again. By the way, it's actually very empowering. Very, very empowering. It feels very, very good to lose weight. But now we live in a culture that says, "Oh, well, you don't want to lose weight? Oh, yeah, that feels hard. Okay, well, we'll just say that it's a good thing then." And if you, I don't know if you've ever gone down the rabbit hole of these are their words. I'm not trying to be degrading, I swear. The fat acceptance influencers. There used to be quite a few of them, but there's not anymore. You know why? Because most of them died. Like, seriously, most of them died. At young ages too, usually from like heart failure, stuff like that. But again, I'm just using this as an example of what we're up against these days, right? Rather than like looking at ourselves in the mirror, which we need to do, and be like, yeah, I got to take this problem on, man. It's time to make some changes. It's like, no, I'm going to convince everybody else that this is the right thing to do. That's just the world we live in now, guys. It's the world that we live in now, unfortunately. Okay, finally, el numero 7, number 7. I took Spanish in junior high. Say siete, el número siete. There you go. That's the extent of my Spanish. This is a wide open topic, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it because it's very complicated. But number 7 is trauma responses. Trauma is always going to have a very, very huge impact on your mind and your mental health. Trauma does a lot of funky stuff. When trauma happens, your brain has to do all kinds of weird, strange things to adapt, survive, and protect itself. Well, most notably, that it tends to break off into pieces and compartmentalize to the point that like people's minds are actually kind of shattered in a way. I did a whole episode on shattered minds. I highly recommend that episode. I personally believe this is one of the primary sources of mental illness is our shattered minds. If you haven't listened to that episode, I would recommend it. But trauma is going to cause your mind to do a whole lot of funky stuff. Okay, is gonna put a lot of crap in your head. It's also going to make you more vulnerable to everything else that I've talked about so far, including negative self talk, criticism, anxiety. It's going to make you highly susceptible to stuff like that. Again, our minds just, when we're subjected to trauma, our minds just do some really, really extreme things sometimes to adapt and survive. So, this list of junk in your head is not intended to be comprehensive. It's not intended to cover everything. Really, just the main stuff. Just like the biggest things. But there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of other things as well. Stuff that maybe doesn't have as much of an influence. So those are the main things. But I promise you that if you can work on the negative self-talk, the criticism and the anxiety and the overthinking, you're gonna get a lot of crap out of your head. There's gonna be a lot of garbage that you get out of your head. Okay, so that does it for my notes. Let's get rid of that. Um, don't need that any longer. In a minute, I'm going to get to our shadow work journal prompts. I always do shadow work journal prompts on every episode to help you do your own work at home, to pull apart and understand your own behaviors. But I did want to touch a little bit on some of the modern therapy norms. And this is something that's been on my mind a lot recently. I hear this from other therapists. I read it in their Reddit posts, and I hear them talk about it at the continuing education conferences, and how the need to be validating in therapy, to validate people, to make sure that you're protecting their feelings, and that you make sure that they feel good. Okay, that's not gonna help you. Maybe in some regards, and I'm not saying all validation should go out the window. In fact, I'm more than happy to heap on the validation in the right types of way, right? I believe in you. I see good in you. Stuff like that, right? To me, that's validating. There's a good person worth saving here, right? You're worth it. That type of stuff, right? To me, that's a type of validation that we should be providing. But a lot of therapists out there are now like, oh, yeah, oh, your feelings are completely valid. Like if somebody walked into my office and they said, everybody at work is joining forces to persecute me and get me fired. I'm not going to validate that because I don't know that that's accurate. I'm going to, oh, yeah, I'm sure your feelings are very valid. No, they're not. You can't believe every thought or feeling that floats through your head. You can't trust every thought and feeling that floats through your head. Unfortunately, I would love to sit here and say, like, trust yourself 100% completely. Every thought, every feeling, every emotion that you have, 100% true, fully accurate, right? That's just not true. In fact, there is like to sit there and act like every thought and feeling that a person has is hurt. It's gonna hurt them, right? Like we need to face our pain. Like that's where we grow. We have to face our pain. And unfortunately, it's become a therapy norm that instead of helping people, we just validate them. And I mean, full disclosure, I am sometimes one of the things that's on my mind sometimes is that I don't want to be affiliated with the therapy world anymore. They have gone down too many roads that I just cannot follow. I just every time that I just like listen to these people, I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And I sit there and like I'll be like, no, that's not true. Don't tell people that. Uh, so the bottom line is this, guys. Choose your therapist wisely, okay? Don't just hire someone who's going to agree with everything that you say. Don't just hire someone who's just going to give you comforting lies and tell you that you're right about everything, okay? Because it's easy to find therapists that are like that. All right, so I'm going to end that rant, at least for now. Let's get into the shadow work journal prompts. If you're new here, I'd like to include shadow work journal prompts that have to do with the topic of the day. Shadow work, if you're not familiar, is something that was founded by one of the OGs of modern psychology, someone that I really admire, Carl Jung, who believed that in order to make changes, we had to dive into the subconscious and get to know ourselves better so that we can change our wiring, get to the source of the problem. It's a lot of reasons to do shadow work. So the purpose of this is to really understand ourselves better so that we can change our patterns, etc., etc., etc. As usual, I just want to mention that if you're going to do my shadow work journal prompts, I would recommend buying a separate journal or notebook to do them in. Doing them in writing is always best. And just for a quick disclaimer, I'm a therapist. I'm not your therapist. Please use your own discretion if you're doing these. If you have really struggled with your mental health, being unstable and stuff like that, use your own discretion. You may want to hire a good therapist, emphasis on the word good, therapist to assist you along the way. Okay, let's get to it. So these ones are really about kind of taking a mental inventory. Okay, question number 1. How is the quality of my self-talk? Is it positive? Is it negative? Could it use improvement? Give yourself some honest insight. How is my self-talk? Number 2, am I overly critical of myself? Am I my own worst enemy? If you answered yes, then answer this question as well. Okay. Why do you do that? Why am I my own harshest critic? Why do I do that? What is the purpose? What is the goal or the objective in doing so? Number 4, you know what? I just thought of something, a point I want to make. So I'll do it after. A point I missed before, but it has to do with cognitive dissonance. How is your personal cognitive dissonance factor? Do you have large cognitive dissonance, or do you have low cognitive dissonance? Again, everybody has it. Everybody. If you say, "Oh, I don't do that," then you are deceiving yourself. That is self-deception. Okay, so that's going to do it for the journal prompts, but I wanted to mention this. It has to do with cognitive dissonance. So I find these days that cognitive dissonance is huge, mostly because of social media. So people tend to live vicariously through their screens, this portal, this warped reality portal. They stay in their homes and they stare at their screens and they think they have a firm grasp on reality. That is self-deception. You do not. Social media is warping your mind. You must have lived experience. Trust your lived experience more than you trust what you see on social media. If you spend a lot of time on social media, there's a good chance you're going to have cognitive dissonance. And if you spend a lot of time on social media and you're sitting there going, I don't have cognitive dissonance, I got some bad news. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Be honest with yourself. Okay, be honest with yourself. Okay, that's the final point that I wanted to make. I'm going to wrap this up. I got other shit to do, man. I'm being productive these days, and it feels really good. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for listening. Please help me grow my audience. Tell a friend. You can check out my website, saltcitycounseling.com. Stay tuned for my anxiety course, which will be published very soon. Very soon. By the time you listen to this, hell, it might be published. But my website again, saltcitycounseling.com. Thanks again for listening. Remember, you must do hard things.